Rigel 7. We were there 5 years ago as a routine exploration of a remote M-class planet.
We were ambushed. We lost 3 people.
Coming up, an away mission forces Captain Pike to face a major failure from his past.
What happened?
Where are we?
The away team begins losing their memories.
There's no going back for me.
Zach, please listen to reason.
It feels right to watch you suffer like I did.
While a Starfleet officer long left for dead seeks retribution.
All this and more.
Coming up on the Strange New Worlds edition of Energize.
Energize.
We're boldly going into the uncharted regions of the Star Trek universe before Captain Kirk.
You're listening to Energize, a Star Trek Strange New Worlds podcast, your source for in-depth analysis, colorful debate, and exciting discussions about the new adventures of Captain Pike and the Enterprise crew. I'm your host, Anthony McLemore.
And I'm Steve Truitt.
In this week's episode, Captain Pike must come to terms with a deadly mistake from his past.
Here's a warp speed recap of Season 2, Episode 3 of Strange New Worlds, Among the Lotus Eaters.
Bridge to Captain Pike. We received a sensitive communication from Command. It's about Rigel 7. We were there 5 years ago as a routine exploration of a remote M-class planet.
The entire mission was only 4 hours.
We were ambushed. We lost 3 people.
They're using our Delta.
They must have left something behind.
The initial landing party will be a small strike team to assess how bad the cultural contamination is.
This is an undercover recon operation. Any level of cultural contamination needs to be surveyed and corrected if possible.
Come on. You all right?
For a moment, I heard this ringing in my ears.
Captain, we've got company. We know you come from Starfleet.
I saw that little streak in the sky. I knew it had to be a shuttle.
Zach? You're alive.
It feels right to watch you suffer like that.
All right, Steve, Among the Lotus Eaters, a weird name for what I would call a weird episode.
Yeah, I know you and I are going to get into it on this one. I did like this one. And we'll get into it as to why, but I'm more curious as to why you didn't, and so I'll be listening for that as we go through this.
Yeah, we'll get into that, but I will critique it on the merits of the story, but then I will also say why I didn't like it. So I can live in 2 places.
Captain's personal log, stardate 1630.1. Enterprise is currently assisting the USS Cayuga in a joint mission. Captain Battelle and I are taking advantage, stealing a little personal time.
So we open up on the Enterprise and the USS Cayuga, which happens to be captained by one Pike's girlfriend, Captain Battelle. They were on this convenient joint mission, which brings them, of course, to Pike's quarters, where they're going to just sit down and try to have some dinner together.
Yeah, and I thought that was the one thing that was really real. Or the one thing that continues to be real is Pike's relationship with another captain. And what would generally happen if you have captains of Starfleet vessels that are in a relationship? It's actually something that's really hard to do. If you're not serving on the same ship, I would see that as very problematic. And that played out in the first part of this episode.
I think the reason that the relationship also works is because they are both captains. And so they both get it, right? If one was a captain and one was something else, but still serving in Starfleet, there wouldn't be a mutual understanding of what the position actually required. And I think that's why Battelle always stays toe-to-toe with Pike. She gets it.
Yes, I take it as a double-edged sword.
Yeah, I agree. So they're talking, and they're getting interrupted constantly by messages, which is crazy. But along the way there, they're talking about their relationship and how space has kept them apart. And she gives him this gift that symbolizes mood changes, which I found interesting.
It's rude to arrive empty-handed.
What did
Found it on call.
an Opelian mariner's keystone?
Ancient Appellian captains wore them to guide lost sailors home.
It's amazing. Thank you.
It was more than just the gift itself. I think it had more to do with this, it symbolizing where they are in their relationship.
Yeah, and you know, sometimes gifts are given at the ends of relationships to remember someone by, like someone will give a lock of hair or something. So this one, I wasn't sure why she was giving it to him. Of course, it played, you know, into the story itself. But it did seem a little confusing, like, what's this all about? But it seemed also very sweet.
Yeah, but it also symbolized, I think, a different level of the relationship. I saw it as giving somebody like a promise ring or something like that takes the relationship to the next level, which sometimes can be counterproductive.
Well, let's
if
look
one
at
person is not in the same place.
And the thing is, I think Pike really loves this woman, but he knows that in now, 9 years, he's going to be massively disfigured. I think that causes him to step back and really take on more of a Picard type of captain role, where he's just like a guy that, you know, captains but doesn't really settle down, right?
Oh, I would think so. I mean, there are two paths that I think that people would go. I mean, you have one that's like, you know, and I'm just going to pull back. I'm not going to get too deep with anyone because 8 years from now, which in all reality is a lifetime. It's not like we're talking about 5 months from now,
right,
a year from now, 2 years from now. And then the other way would be how some people would just be like, you know what, I'm just going to live every moment as if it's the last day and just take full advantage of the time that you have left. And he seems to be doing the prior.
I think the biggest hole in this whole thing, and I hate to say this because I love this show so much, and I think the showrunners have gotten Star Trek back to where it needs to be, is if he knows this is going to happen, why not just wear a fire suit on the day it happens? But, you know, we can't go there. But so,
yeah, we kind of addressed that in the season finale about trying to unravel it.
Well, try to stop it, but not just maybe go through it, but, you know, maybe put on a protective, you know, headgear. I don't know. But they're discussing Battelle being passed over for Commodore. And, you know, the assumption is it's because of what the part she played in Una's trial, which I find interesting, too, because it just weaves into Pike's relationship yet again. There they were going toe-to-toe again with Una. And I love how they're making it so hard for these two to just love each other.
I'm worried. This is difficult.
Difficult is not the same as impossible.
30 minutes here, 10 minutes there. Who are we kidding?
Even if it's just a moment together, I'll take what I can get.
And I think Pike took advantage of it. You know, he kind of used this as an out, and it really upset Battelle.
Yeah. Well, I think it would, and I think you're right. I think that this whole thing, this whole opening scene, is showing that Pike is, for whatever reason, cutting off this relationship because it's going to hurt too much.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think he's hurting himself ultimately. I mean, I think it's all about the time you have left. If you knew, you know, that he has something that's better than, you know, 100% of the population. You know where all roads lead. At least you know that you get 8 full years. We don't know anything from day to day.
Right. And he lives after
8 years.
And he lives after that. He's just a barbecued vegetable, I guess. Yeah. I would just live it up. Yeah.
You live every day, live in the moment, and just do.
Bridge to Captain Pike. We received a sensitive communication from command. It's about Rigel 7.
So after Battelle leaves, Una alerts Pike to an urgent message regarding Rigel 7, and you can see Pike's mood noticeably change.
It's interesting because he was there before. You know, they do this swing by every so often to check out on the planet because it's a planet where they're not supposed to reveal who they are, right? They're still in some pre-whatever age. And the last time they went there, it was just a disaster. And 3 of their officers were ambushed and killed. And they actually kind of talk about them. They show their faces and who they were. And it makes it very real. Like, he still hangs on to that.
Yeah, but I think one great thing about it is that sometimes on shows you can see the leaders of teams, they're flawless. They never make mistakes. But here, you know, Pike, doesn't have a spotless record.
No, and we're starting to see that with a lot of characters and a lot of captains. We saw it with Robert April in the Una episode. You know, people are people, and I think that's part of a Gene Roddenberry vision too, is that these people are not perfect. But it's interesting to see Spike. I mean, you know, the only thing really perfect about Pike apparently is his hair. That's just the only thing that cannot be shaken.
Yes.
Well,
he has the
most perfect hair.
Pompadour hair, whatever you call it.
That is.
Pompadour
sure.
hair, yes, that's the
he's,
word, pompadour.
He's Gray Elvis is what he is.
So, as it turns out, Rigel 7's atmosphere prohibits long-range scanning. So, like you said before, every couple of years this planet is scheduled for observation. So they do this flyby, and this time on a flyby, it's revealed on a scan, on a close-up scan, that there's a structure, and there's a Starfleet symbol outside of the structure,
which is crazy because you know what that reminded me of, and I'm always being triggered about other Star Trek shows, is Star Trek Into Darkness. In the beginning, they're escaping that volcano, and when they save the people, I believe the planet was called Niribi, they save all those people. And as the Enterprise comes out of the water, they see it and they draw it as their new god and they start to pray to it. And I thought, oh, well, that's what's going on here. Someone has seen a symbol and they're now making that their symbol of God or whatever that's going to be.
Yeah, and basically they've shaped the development of a species, you know, and a pre-warp species. And so that's why the Prime Directive is so important. In the Star Trek universe. So that means they blew it. So basically seeing that symbol means that their influence, something they left behind has, you know, left some tech or whatever the case is, the people there have it.
The initial landing party will be a small strike team to assess how bad the cultural contamination is.
Last time we went down there, we were in uniform. I'm not making that mistake twice. This is an undercover recon operation.
So, okay, there's going to be an away mission. And once again, Dr. Mbenga is brought into the fold here. And I think he brings him in because there may be a medical issue. I don't remember why they discussed it, but I get La'an and I get Pike, I guess, right? But the doctor's really getting some playtime.
Yeah, well, basically, though, Pike said that he needed two people with combat experience. Now, remember, in the previous episode, we saw Mbenga kicking ass.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and that's the thing, like...
In 2 episodes prior.
Right, and this is, again, I think I mentioned this last week, this is what leads me to think that, you know, this is why McCoy shows up eventually, because Mbenga probably gets killed at some point. He's such a badass that,
Yep, and he's a holdover from the first Klingon War, because I know that we discussed that. So we saw him fighting with Nurse Chapel in episode 1. We saw him sparring with La'an. So he clearly has some skills, and I actually like it. I mean, like I've stated before in a previous episode of Energize, I like the fact that he's just not one-dimensional. He's not just a doctor. There's a little more beneath the surface. So I think this is a good idea. And
he's not the typical angry doctor like House or Becker or even, and I'm talking about the CBS shows, or even, God, what is it about CBS? They all have angry doctors. Even McCoy was kind of bitter. So before they go, Una has a conversation with Pike. I like this relationship between the two of them.
I noticed the Cayuga left in a bit of a rush.
We decided to take some time apart.
Oh, you did that thing you do.
What thing?
And she's an excellent counselor. I mean, it's clear that their relationship really goes deep as, you know, best friends, like a best friend relationship.
And I think that's just going to grow. I think this series will get at least 5 years. It's already been renewed for season 3 automatically. And I think we're going to see those two become not lovers, friends, like true friends. She's the real number one, you know?
Rigel 7.
I still think about it. What could I have done differently?
It wasn't your fault, Chris.
I led the mission. Whatever we find down there, it's on me.
So Pike is still bothered by what happened last time. Clearly Command wants Enterprise, Pike to clean up the mess they made 4 years earlier. So, Pike, Doc, and Lon go down in a shuttle.
Which makes sense, too, because, they can't, there's no beaming down to this, and they can only bring rudimentary tools, and they just got to make it as basic as possible. And they land, and they've got to hike, 4 kilometers or something? They got to walk all this way. I'm like, wow, that's a really long walk.
Yeah. And as they're doing this, Lon has ringing in her ears. She's affected, she's lightheaded, and momentarily confused.
Lon, you all right?
Not gonna lie, for a moment I heard this ringing in my ears.
And 6 hours have already transpired.
Yeah, well, here's what's happened. They've been walking for 6 hours. We do a quick jump cut, but she's like, let's get going. And we've been walking for hours, and she's just like, wait, what? She's also lost a bit of her memory. And that's going to play into it. And I'm starting to think, well, is this part of the environment? Is this what's happening with the sensors can't penetrate the cloud atmosphere or whatever's going on?
Or is this some kind of tech that has been utilized against them?
Yeah.
So at this point I have no clue. So I'm just kind of hanging in on this one.
Captain, we've got company.
3 on 6, we've got this.
Let's try diplomacy first.
So they get up to the edge there and they look down. And Benga, who's been kind of taking a flank, I guess, runs up and they're coming to get us. And the next thing you know, there's some of these officers or guards or whatever they are right there.
Yep, and they have Starfleet weapons, and they know exactly who they are.
Yeah, they're like, you're Starfleet, come with us. It's like, wait, what? Weird. That threw me. I was like, wait, what is going on? But of course, they had that Starfleet symbol, so they know something.
Yep, and that's further confirmation that the Prime Directive has been breached, and Rigel 7 has been impacted in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, what we don't know now, but I'm starting to suspect that this is due to Pike's mission. Something that happened when did they recover those bodies? I don't know, but something happened when that mission went wrong, that's when the Prime Directive really was disturbed, and they were sent off into a different direction.
Right.
Rigel
But here's
7.
the thing, though. I am starting to wonder if somebody got left behind instead of them being dead. Because how would an indigenous species? I mean, there's a castle there. I mean, you drop weapons like phasers and things like that on medieval times, and I mean, those people are not going to know how to utilize them, because I know that you just don't automatically pick them up and they shoot.
Yeah. Well, you're right. I agree, and I wasn't going that deep about thinking was someone left behind, because sometimes I just believe what I'm told on Star Trek. If they say all 3 died, I'm like, okay, they all 3 died.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's one thing if Starfleet had left bow and arrows, I'm pretty sure they'd end up figuring it out. But then there's another thing to have super high-tech 23rd century weapons. They probably, have to have a fingerprint to even shoot. How would you know how to utilize them unless somebody from Starfleet told you how to do it? So I'm already primed now that there's somebody pulling the strings that was, once Starfleet.
I saw that little streak in the sky. I knew it had to be a shuttle.
Zach, you're alive.
The group is led into the palace, and they're greeted by a person that Pike immediately recognizes. And it's one of the crew that was killed on the last mission. You were right. They didn't all die. And he looks a little silly. He's kind of brought out like the king. He's a high lord.
Yeah, and he is now called Lord Sicarius. And this is where
and his name was Zach. Okay, so tell me about that. What is this where they lost you?
Yeah, this is where they lost me. It kind of harkens me back to that one episode with Mbenga and his daughter and the king. I mean, like I said, that was an episode that by the end I was into it, but and I understood why they did it. And you have to do some departure episodes, but I just it's medieval times themed stuff. I just wasn't. I think they could have played that a little bit better.
Well, okay, so I don't disagree. However, I was on for the ride, because while I found the actor or his character to be silly, and the fact that he was Lord Zicarius, this person suddenly is treated as a lord. I'm wondering why. Is it because of the weaponry? Is it because he has these future abilities? What happened? How did he not die? And why is he not like, oh, thank God you're here, right? So that's what threw me, right? I mean, it didn't seem like he was lord of a lot.
I immediately was like, this dude has lost it.
Yeah, it didn't seem like he was lord of a lot of things. He was just kind of lord of the castle.
I armed the locals with Starfleet tech and made myself king. There's no going back for me.
Zach, please listen to reason.
Feels right to watch you suffer like I did.
How much trouble are they in now? Because, like, this is a big deal. They've left someone behind who's polluted a whole culture. This Zacharias or Zach is the problem. And how, mentally stable is he?
No, he doesn't seem very stable. Because if you go to medieval times route and you call yourself a lord, well then, unless he did that because that's how he sees control, and that's where they were in their time frame of wherever this planet was in their development, maybe. But I can see that Zach is bitter about being left behind, and I just think that poses a huge threat for Pike and company because. You can imagine if you thought that everybody left you behind, how you might feel.
Without a doubt, I would feel that way. Here's where I have trouble with the logic of it. If he is a trained Starfleet officer, number one, I'm not convinced that he would make himself Lord Zacharias. I think that he would ingratiate himself with the people, but be just a humble servant and help them and be less conspicuous. And two, when William Riker was left behind, when there was that transporter accident and he got split into two people and he became Thomas Riker, he wasn't bitter.
Yeah, but it all depends on the situation. This is clearly an inhospitable planet because of this meteor field and its impacting people's brains, and there's a loss of time. They're forgetting. It's just ringing in their ears. So maybe he's been altered in some shape or form.
Yeah, I think that's possible. And I'm starting to realize, okay, this meteor, this whatever it's doing to the planet and to the atmosphere, obviously has an effect on people. That explains the headaches and the lost time and all of that. But it's clear that Zach wants revenge. And who better than the guy who left him there? All of a sudden, he just shows up again. How ironic is that?
Yep, and so he wants Pike to suffer like he did. And he told him, just, by tomorrow, you will remember nothing.
What happened?
Where are we?
This is a cage.
We were captured.
Zach has caged Pike, Lon, and Doc outside in some cages outside of the castle.
I have a feeling you didn't like this either.
I'm in it for the ride at this point. I mean, like I said, I just didn't like the whole castle Lord Zach thing. But, once I put that aside,
I don't think you put it aside. I think you're still bitter about it. I think you need to come clean.
Maybe a little, but I put it aside, and I can, like I said, I can discuss this on the merits of the writing for that particular episode.
Synaptic degradation is apparent across all neural pathways, and this is affecting our memory. Only explicit memory is lost. Information and facts. Implicit memory, procedures we learn and can recall by instinct or emotion. Those all remain intact.
Meantime, on the Enterprise, some of the same things are starting to happen. Like, people are having dementia and they're going to sickbay, and, Chapel's there all by herself trying to just kind of handle it.
So I think the bigger theme of this show is, what are you without your memory? So if everyone's losing their memories, who are you? And I think, we deal with that in this day and age when it comes to Alzheimer's and dementia. And, I've experienced that in my family, and I know other people who are going through it.
Me too. I lost my mom to Alzheimer's, and every day when I forget something, I think, oh, is it starting? Am I getting it? And it freaks me out.
Oh yeah, same here, because my grandmother had it, and some of her sisters did, and so it's just one of those things. And my best friend's going through it right now, talking to him about it and what steps to take, because we've gone down this road. And so I think maybe that's the theme of this. Who are you without your memories?
Wait! It's all right. They've had a rough forgetting. I can help you recenter, but hurry.
Lon, Doc, and Pike are out in this cage. The next morning, this old guy shows up, and he seems to know what's going on, but is also limited in terms of his memories. And he tells Pike and company that, live in the moment, and takes him to a work camp.
And it's funny because he can remember to say that, but he has no memory of who he was or what happened. This is where I want to pause for a second and say, I absolutely not only love this actor whose name I don't know. I tried looking it up. That's not true. I looked it up. I had it, and then I lost the paper that I wrote it on. Yes, folks, I still write on paper. But I love him, and I thought his performance in this episode was my favorite part. I mean, he was incredible. He was so good, and his performance just keeps getting better and better and better. He played a great role in this.
And he reveals that at night, people in the palace keep their memories, but anyone outside
So
doesn't.
now we're starting to see, now we know what's going on here. The palace is some kind of shield.
Yeah, so there's some have and have-nots in this society. And so, there's a caste system that's already in place. It seems like you can't escape caste systems no matter where you go.
What is keeping the palace people from losing their memories? I'm thinking it's the palace themselves. There must be some kind of shielding or some kind of something that it was made of to protect them. That's got to be the way it is.
Is it some kind of tech? And then I started going down like a little an avenue. I was like, well, maybe is this some kind of Landru situation?
Explain.
Landru in the original series was, they had the bewitching hour, and people would lose control of themselves and wouldn't remember anything.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, is this some kind of version of Landru? Maybe those who work for Landru in the palace keep their memories and everybody else doesn't, as a method of control.
Could be it.
My theory.
It could be. Okay, we'll take that one and write it down on paper.
Yes.
Her wound is deep. She won't last much longer without treatment. I believe I can save her.
Allow her last moments to be serene, not anxious and fearful.
I'm not ready to have my last moments yet, thank you.
Eventually, Pike and the rest, they escape, and they head right to the castle, which I think is good because he wants to, get back to Zach. And he still remembers Zach, or I don't think he does he? He's lost his memory at this point. He doesn't remember who he is or what he's doing.
Yeah, he's kind of just on autopilot, and he's stumbling through.
And Mbenga has no idea.
Right.
In fact, none of them really
And the
know.
guy, the old guy,
you're right,
revealed that they keep some basic memories written down.
Yeah.
There's like a totem pole that tells the story.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm thinking, a totem? Is that like I'm starting to think Christopher Nolan. Like, is this Memento or is this Inception? Like, there's a lot of those going on here. But the old man himself reveals that he doesn't want to remember. He likes not having the memories. It keeps him happy. It keeps him centered. He lives in the moment. And you're starting to see, okay, I can see this guy confronting memories later on. This is going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's afraid of what he could discover.
Yeah.
I mean, there's this whole thing of going through life not knowing the truth of things,
right.
And that's something that we confront in our society now. You have you have whole segments of the population that choose to live obliviously to the truth of things.
Ignorance is bliss.
And they're happy with that.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
Yeah.
While causing damage. Yeah, exactly.
While causing damage
Right.
to the to the society abroad, because you can't have everybody not knowing how things operate and how things really, really are.
There is a good scene where we see that totem actually.
Yep.
And
that was before they charged the castle.
Yeah. So we go back to that old man's house and he shows the totem, and there's something about it that just doesn't resonate with Pike. It's like, I don't know, man. I feel like this is just something that was invented. You don't even know what it means. And he's starting to realize, like the doctor's starting to say, because La'an's injured, and the doctor's like, I know I can help her. I think that's what I'm supposed to do. And La'an is like, I think I'm a warrior somehow. They all are starting to, even though they don't have their memories, they're like, this is what I do. Like when they escaped, they knew what they were doing. They knew how to fight. They knew how to do all this. I like that they kept their core abilities. I thought that was cool.
Bar the doors, it's just you and me!
You aren't supposed to be here!
Well, I am.
So, Pike gets into the castle and he confronts Zach to find out how he's keeping his memories, and the two get into a fight.
Pretty good fight. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would think Zach would have been, lazy and fat, after sitting around and being served by all of his people. But he had some good, punches and right crosses and so forth. But he eventually yields. He gets the crap beat out of him, but he puts up a good fight.
Yep. And so they're the old man had mentioned something about there being a casket or something that shields everyone. So it led me to think that there's like some cavern or some kind of case that everyone goes into.
I love that it shames everybody. I think the misconceptions that are fed into this guy with the totem and the casket that shames you, that's a perfect example of how people who accept, scraps can be controlled, right?
Oh, 100%. I mean, we're living and breathing it every single day,
I know. And I think Star Trek always holds a mirror. I just watched something this week on YouTube about Star Trek Enterprise. I was on Star Trek Enterprise, just to remind everybody. Season 3, episode 21, I think it was. And Enterprise really came right after 9/11, and how, the curse of Enterprise was that they wanted to kind of make it like us going to the Middle East and fighting a war in Iraq. So, Jonathan Archer takes his Enterprise and goes off to find the people who attacked us, and it just kind of lost sight of what Star Trek really is. And we're seeing that here in a way too, in that, how people can be manipulated, and it's definitely mirroring what's happening today. I think it always does that.
Oh yeah, 100%. They're doing a great job, because if if you're really paying attention, you can actually see what's the message, or you can see the parallels. And it's happening right now. When you can get people to vote against their own interests, it pretty much spells it out for you. So
does.
So Pike opens this trunk, and there are tricorders, medical equipment, all the things that they need. And it's basically the palace is made of an ore that protects them from the radiation. So that's how this has happened. And so this allows,
and that I saw coming a mile away.
Yeah.
Sure.
You called it. You called it from the very beginning.
Yeah, and it makes sense. Here's what now look again. I liked this episode. I know you weren't fond of it. I liked it because to me it is pure Star Trek. They go down to a planet. Something's messing with their heads. This reminds me a lot of the original series. Where I felt it dropped the ball was in Zacharias's character. What happened to him? They really missed an opportunity to tell his story over the last 3 years, and instead just focused on, I don't know who I am and I don't know my memories, and it's all about Pike. Imagine if they had gotten a different actor, someone with a little more depth, and really delved into that. I think that would have been interesting.
I think it could have been cool if there had been some flashbacks, some real quick flashbacks to explain how he got to where he is. And I think I would have been on board for this.
I agree.
And like I said, the medieval times part of it threw me out of it. But I mean, there have been episodes where people, influence the whole society. There was this whole episode in the original series where Kirk and company went down to a planet, and they ended up having an American flag, but some captain or something had crashed there many years before and influenced them, and then they were, I could see the guy reciting the Pledge of Allegiance or something like that, and it was all like gibberish because it had been watered down, and then Kirk understands it and is, and actually spells it out. But I could see that, or the episode where, Nazi Germany is there, because of some influence.
Right.
And
that would have been interesting if they really broke the Prime Directive. We'd see Planet of the Apes, right? We'd see something where the evolution, and I know it's only been 3 years, but we would have seen an evolution. All we see is they use weapons and they've got the symbol.
Yeah, it was.
You're right.
There were some holes in that one, so I guess those are the things that bother me. So,
well, thanks. Now you're ruining the episode for me, man. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. And don't get me wrong. I love Star Trek: Strange New Worlds, and everything's not going to be a home run. So I think for our listeners, Steve and I are just honest about how we feel about a particular episode, not as an overall bash of the series in itself, but I think each episode lends itself to criticism.
Would you like to plot a course?
I know that. I don't know who I am.
You are Lieutenant Erica Ortegas, Alpha Shift pilot assigned to the USS Enterprise.
I'm a pilot?
Affirmative.
So up on the ship, Ortegas, doesn't know what she does, but somehow the computer triggers something, and the ship's computer helps her, regain some of her latent memories by telling her that she's a pilot. And she needs to pilot the ship away.
Yeah, she's like, who am I? And like, you're Lieutenant Ortegas. You are the ship's pilot. And that makes sense to her. She looks out the window and she's like, yeah, I am the ship's pilot.
Yep. And so, the ship's computer helps her. She gets some of her, I guess, core memories, latent memories, whatever's automatic. And she's able to get the Enterprise clear of the debris field.
We've seen this muscle memory play out this whole episode. Mbenga doesn't know he's a doctor, but he knows he can treat her. Pike doesn't know he can kick the shit out of one of the guards, but he goes for it anyway, and so forth. So I like the muscle memory aspect of that. I thought that was great.
Pilot's personal log, stardate 1632.2. As soon as we cleared the debris field, our memories came back. Turns out those unknown elements Spock found in the asteroids were causing all the problems.
And so, they, like I said, they, cleared the debris field and things went back to normal. So basically, Enterprise intervenes again in the planet's destiny and pulls the asteroid out. It caused the planet's problems to go away. There you go. Thank you, Rigel. Thank you, Rigel 7.
Well, here's what I'd like to see then. Here's what I'd like to see. I'd like to see this somehow play into future episodes. If not this season, maybe in other seasons. Maybe this leads to a problem that has Pike, be burned alive or whatever is going on. I wouldn't want to just leave this alone because they've intervened now 3 times.
Yep.
Or 2 times.
Yep.
I read the report. Sounds like you had a rough couple of days.
Yeah, I did. But I learned something. About me. And about us.
Us?
I was wrong.
So we end where we started, and Pike, is with Captain Patel, and he admits that he was wrong and tries to make up with her, and she accepts.
And again, not a lot of reach here because she gets it. She's a captain, and he's really, he's very humble about it. He's got this necklace, which helped him kind of remember in the first place, and he sees the symbolism of it. He gets it, and this is what Una was trying to tell him in the first place, excuse me. You keep too many people at arm's length, and you don't need to do that. And who's the benefactor? Well, Batel, and of course she takes him back because she didn't leave because she was done with him. She left because she felt he was done with her.
Right. Yeah.
Or done with himself.
Yeah. Frankly. So the relationship is, repaired, and we get a chance to continue with the Pike-Batel relationship.
I think it went well. I liked this episode again because I felt it was more pure Star Trek. But more importantly, I missed Pike. He was only in, so far, 2 out of the 4 episodes this season, and I wanted to get him back there.
Yeah, true that. And, so I think it'll be really, really interesting to see, what episodes come up next. I'm ready to see how they're going to measure up to last season. So far, I really enjoyed the court episode with Una, and I've really
me too.
Yeah, last week was
and
really,
last
really
week
good.
was insane.
Really, really good.
Last week, tomorrow was just such a good episode because it surprised us both how much we really liked.
Yeah, that one was a nice surprise. So yeah, there we go.
Well, okay, this was not our favorite episode. That's all right, but it certainly had some moments, and I think we should at least acknowledge them. Anthony, do you want to go first, or should I?
You go first. I'm going to have to think about it.
Okay. Well, I liked it because it was a pure Star Trek episode, but again, I'll say, and shame on me for not looking up this gentleman's name, but the actor who played the older man who had the totem and brought them back, I loved him more than virtually anyone else in the episode. His story, we got so much of it. And, we forgot to say at the end, when he got his memory back, when he went into the castle, he remembered what he was so afraid to remember was that he had lost his son and his wife. And the pain of that was so intense. And yet he turned to Pike and thanked him for giving his memories back. And I loved that moment. And I just felt that actor was just wonderful. We've seen him forever. He's done a million things, but I just love that he did a great job.
Well, for me, it wasn't a moment, but it was more tied to the theme. I did appreciate the overall theme, which was, who are we without our memories? Good or bad. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we need them. They make up who we are, our experiences, our past experiences. And so that part of it, I really enjoyed. That part, made me think. But I want to thank everyone for listening. That concludes this episode of Energize, a Star Trek Strange New Worlds edition podcast.
Hey, if you want to check out what's going on at our site, please do. Go to www.energizepodcasts.com. And my book, which hit #1 on Amazon, The Deletion, is available. Thank you. Please go to stevetruitt.com for more information. The audiobook comes out in July.
All right. Thanks for listening, everyone. I'm Anthony McLemore.
I'm Steve Truitt. Live long and prosper.